Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to Diana Emerson. Today we're listening to this is Homicide, New York, the Carnegie Deli Massacre.
When I got the call, they said, "Oh, Carnegie Deli, you've got a quintuple, 5 homicides."
When we got to the scene, we had a hell of a lot of people outside, and also the restaurant was jammed. The uniform closed the place down. We want to keep the crowd there so we can interview them. Try to get witnesses as quickly as you can.
I get up there and I get briefed by the detectives.
So at the scene, there was 3 likely and 2 DOAs. 3 people who are likely are going to go to the emergency room. They're going to go to the hospital. I can't imagine laying there, hearing the shots go off, and knowing that you're next. You can't shoot 5 people in New York. They're going to hunt your ass down. They're going to find you.
Every single case takes little pieces out of your soul.
You cannot do this job unless you really care.
You want to find out the truth. That's what detectives do. I've always liked the peek behind the curtain. What really happened?
It's so important for a family to know who murdered their relative. I mean, that's my job.
In New York City, the NYPD. This is it.
I love New York. I grew up in Alphabet City on 10th Street in housing projects. My parents were very strict with me. I was never allowed to do a thing. But we used to cut out of high school and go to movie theaters on 42nd Street. It was a real grungy area for a long time. You had the peep shows, you had all the pedophiles in the arcades, but it had color, it had life. It also had quite a bit of business for me, most unfortunately. When I became a cop in the 80s, it was still really high crime.
Police officers were hired in the 1980s, kind of cleaned up those streets in the 1990s. By 2001, Broadway was at one of its peaks. Theaters were all crowded every night, and the Carnegie Deli was thriving. I mean, people would wait online to get in there.
It's bright and it's crazy and it's filled with tourists dislocating their jaws on huge sandwiches.
It was right next to the theater that Letterman filmed, so people flocked there. It was a landmark. So it's a Thursday. I worked earlier in the day, was done, and I was at the ball field coaching my son's baseball game. The game just ended when I get the call. When you start saying it's in Midtown Manhattan and you start mentioning a landmark like Carnegie Deli, I have to get up there as soon as possible. In retrospect, I probably should have put a suit on. I did not. I show up, I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt.
The crime that took place in that building was on the top floor apartment, not in the restaurant. Fifth floor was where everything took place.
We spoke to the super, we speak to the neighbors, we do canvases and find out if anybody can tell us who these people are.
The cooperation from the deli downstairs, we identified Jennifer Stoll.
It's her apartment.
I remember standing in the doorway of the apartment building and seeing this guy come down the stairs taking pictures. And I don't know everybody in crime scene by name, but I think I know everybody in crime scene by now. I've been around long enough, and I'm like, I don't even see crime scenes called. Who's this guy taking pictures? So I remember it went something like this, like, who are you? And what are you doing in my crime scene? You know, crime? No, I'm not. Well, then who are you? I'm the police commissioner's photographer. And I'll tell you exactly what I said. You can decide to bleep it out. I was like, I don't give a fuck who you are. Get out of my fucking crime scene.
Perino's not a kiss ass. A case like this, everybody wants to come and look. But when you're in charge of the crime scene, no matter who the boss is, you gotta tell them you can't come in.
We get upstairs, and inside, they're on the floor with two bodies, face down, with their hands behind their back, tied up in duct tape, and shot in the head.
They didn't break in. Door's not broken down. So that gives you some clue.
Barbara Butcher was like having another detective there, but a detective who knew more than you.
I was a medical legal death investigator working for the Office of Chief Medical Examiner in New York. We go to that scene and investigate the body. We work with the police. The scene belongs to them. The body belongs to me. 4 people had been lined up and shot. And there was blood in a rectangle down the living room floor. And then the smears of blood where 2 of the people had been pulled away by EMTs. And then I photographed the wounds and the bindings tied behind the back, ankles tied, things like that. One of the detectives saying to me, let me take you in where we think the first shooting occurred, the first victim. That was Jennifer Stoll. Somebody told me that she was the owner of the apartment that had been removed because she still had a pulse. Even though the body isn't there, I still need to collect whatever evidence, whatever story I can about that person if they're likely to die. And we went back to a little recording studio. She had this wonderful little creative thing, the kind of thing I would like. And I had a flash of sadness. And to see blood in that little sweet little studio, that's not good. You want to be careful not to let your emotions get away with you. So, quick, boom, let's close the lid on that. Let's tamp that right the hell down. Let's get about our business.
I remember walking into the apartment, becomes apparent that this is a place of business.
This was not the nickel bag in Washington Square Park cut with oregano kind of pot dealing. She was dealing high-end marijuana.
We discovered drugs and money missing.
Right away, we're going to think it's a robbery gone bad. But the fact that you have 5 people tied up, 4 people on the floor, that's very unusual, especially in Midtown. Like, that doesn't really happen there.
All shot in the head, back of the head, execution style.
We can think that it could be a personal thing. We could think it might be a domestic thing where Jennifer might have had a problem with a boyfriend or, somebody else. The fact that Jennifer Stoll was selling weed, it wasn't important to us, even though marijuana was illegal, then we were more concerned that 5 people got shot.
The media was all over it from the beginning. They caught wind of it the night it happened.
Detective Detectives and crime scene investigators searched for clues hours after two men and a woman were killed and another man and woman hospitalized. A friend of mine called and was like, Mish, did you turn on the TV? Did you see the news? There's been a shooting in Jen's. They were interrupting TV shows.
A massacre that happened right above the Carnegie Deli.
Execution-style shooting inside the building were bound and gagged with duct tape.
She had broken her finger and had a surgery. You could see the cast on her hand, and I knew it was Jen. I knew it was her.
With the media pressure came more resources, which was very helpful.
Manhattan is divided for police department purposes, Manhattan North and Manhattan South. So the dividing line is 59th Street. Manhattan South handles everything south of 59th Street, down to the Battery, river to river. Each borough has several precincts. Each of those precincts has a detective squad. Homicide squads come in as a support group when a homicide drops in one of those precincts.
The case was assigned to Midtown North Precinct. So it's Manhattan South homicide. You need personnel. The more personnel, the more information you're going to get. You want to get Manhattan North homicide down there.
We would be called to assist them. They never would be called to assist us.
Manhattan South, we always call them Manhattan Soft. Cops that work in Manhattan North are tougher, so you always kind of like there's like this whole competition. When I went to work in Manhattan South, I totally changed my opinion. Manhattan South, you have to really use your head and your investigation skills because a lot of the cases were like stranger on stranger homicides, and a lot of the perpetrators come from New Jersey, Brooklyn, Queens. They can come from anywhere.
There were witnesses on the scene who saw a red car driving away, close proximity to the deli. These bits of information, when they're put together, it's either going to fit into the pattern of the investigation or it's going to just get ruled out. But everything is worthy of a look.
It's a full court press to find out as much as we can.
First of all, we identified Jennifer's store as her apartment. From there, we had to identify all the victims that are there.
All your effort goes into identifying the person before it even goes into figuring out what happened.
You do victimology. You look into their backgrounds. We had a gang database, and you're going to run them through that database. Check with narcotics to see if they knew any individuals that were there, nicknames, phone numbers, things like that.
The DOAs were Stephen King and Charles Hollowell. Jennifer didn't make it. She died probably just a few hours later. Gunshot wound to the head. And the other two, by a miracle of God, despite being shot in the head, they survived.
I just feel like somebody was watching out for me. Like definitely my mother was with me or something like that. And God was on one shoulder and my mother was on the other. Because, yeah, that was close. I was shot on my right side, behind my ear and right at the bottom of my hairline. And then the exit came out above my occipital bone. So it just basically followed the curvature of the skull and came out, which is a lucky thing because I think if it went in, I wouldn't be here probably. I never left my spot because I didn't know I was in like this big puddle of blood, and I didn't know if I was lodged, if the bullet was still in me, if I was lodged the bullet in me, or if I was. So I just seeing what I was. Once I thought that they were gone, is when I got my hands untied from the capture state and reached for my cell phone in my pockets and called 911 and then just kept making phone calls.
That, we're trying to get payments out of them.
the detectives were there right from when I got to the hospital. I just told them, what I knew. I mean, what I saw.
You found out the victims, they were all like theater people in the arts. And I understood that one of the living victims was the fiance of one of the DOAs.
I told the police officer. I walked in and Jen introduced me to Cabo Roseman and Trey that were up from St. John. They were all sitting around just having a glass of wine. She just asked me to join them, and I did. My intent was just to go there and give her a trim and get weed. I'm a hairstylist, so we did a little bartering. About 15 minutes after I got there was a buzz at the door. It was almost like a little bit of a blur of two people coming in, but you could tell from the size of them. One was taller than the other one was better looking than the other one. I don't know the man. The taller one of the two took a gun out from his waistband and said, everybody get on the ground and put your arms behind your back. I mean, I just did what I was told, and I thought maybe that would keep it from, anything escalating, but one of them took my friend Jennifer into the other room. I remember her saying, please just take whatever you want, just don't hurt my friends. And with that, that's when I heard the first gunshot go off. And I guess he killed her right there. I just didn't hear it again after that. So I just think I knew that this is it. I figured there wasn't going to be anything else.
Find your ultimate flavor at visitcalifornia.com. In New York City, there's no telephone notifications when someone dies. It's face to face.
You got to go knock on this person's door in the middle of the night or middle of the day and tell them that someone in their family is deceased. I mean, that's really the hardest part.
Those words don't come out of your mouth easy to say that their loved one has been murdered, tragically like this and senselessly. And I think there's another level to it. And, you can just feel it, like when people learn it for the first time. So it's just, it's not an easy thing.
It was May 11th that we found out. My mom and dad, they were on the Cape, and a police officer came to their house. My mother was watering her flowers in her bathroom, and at like 6 a.m, two policemen walked down the driveway and said, "Are you Karen Hallowell?" And she just said she had this huge sinking sensation. Yeah. And they're like, "Is your husband here?" And he was, and so they sat them down, and then they told them the news that Trey was dead. Yeah. Our lives were forever changed that day. 2 days later, it was his birthday, and it was lilac season. He absolutely loved lilacs. He was born and he died in lilac, the height of his glory. Mm-hmm. We knew Trey was coming to New York to meet Roseman's family and to attend a cousin's wedding. And they were supposed to stay at Jennifer Stahl's Carnegie Deli apartment. Yeah. And so that's there.
Whereas Mom came to visit Jen. But I felt it was really sad because Trey didn't really know Jen. Just, a friend of a friend hanging out with her.
In this case, we raised 18 fingerprints between inside the apartment and on the banister, but we collected no ballistic shells. So that tells you something there.
5 shots, you don't find any shells, you know you're probably looking at a revolver.
Maybe they threw a weapon, the gun, in the sewer. We call DEP. We look at the garbage bin. We have people looking in garbage cans that are on the street. We're doing everything to get as much information as possible.
There had been a surveillance camera installed in the staircase. That night, they discovered that.
The surveillance video depicted 2 male blacks. One had dreads and a hoodie, and the other one had shorter hair.
In my history and the hundreds of homicides I worked on, only one other than this, I videoed. So I was surprised when I saw the tape. I was like, whoa, this is very good.
We knew that those people were suspects. There's some people that we wanted to get into contact with and speak to. This case happened at 7:30 p.m. We worked around the clock in the same place. In Jennifer's apartment, there was an answering machine. It was blinking. We hit play. Her friend was asking, is she okay? If she hadn't heard from her, and she was wondering where she was.
I had called Jennifer's house while the murders were happening.
Based on that message, we needed to interview her friend and find out why she was worried about her. You know, why was she concerned that Jennifer wasn't answering her phone?
The morning of May 11th, homicide detectives walked into my house. They looked like they were off of a set of NYPD Blue. And they asked me questions about her business. I said to them, it was a place to gather.
It was just like friends hanging out and people smoking, talking.
So they were people that you met in passing, but we didn't necessarily become friends. Jennifer sold weed to support her artwork.
We learned that she was an actress that was in Dirty Dancing.
But her music was more of an interest to her at that point than dancing and acting was. Her recording studio was the room that she dealt pot out of. She did also love to bring friends in and record with them too. People that came in and out of Jennifer's apartment were Jennifer's friends. It was just getting busier. I think it just seemed sort of chaotic to her, sometimes hard to manage, and her buzzer going off. And occasionally she would have a friend there who would help manage the door. Stephen was there working that night, answering the door for her.
She was basically dealing to her friends and people that she knew in the industry.
She dealt with some famous people, Saturday Night Live cast, things like that. Her clientele was like well vetted. She had to know you. If you said, "Oh, so and so sent me," I don't think you're getting buzzed up into Jennifer's apartment. She was ultra careful. This was very hard for us as her friends because if they wanted something from Jen, she would have given it to them. There was no reason to shoot 5 people. I saw Jen just a few days before her murder, and she was quite upset. Jennifer had been fighting with her boyfriend. I believe she was trying to leave, and he grabbed her hand, and so her finger got broken. One of the suspects was the black man with long dreads. I felt very certain that her boyfriend had killed her because he fit that description.
With the information we got from Barbara, we got Jennifer Stoll's boyfriend's name, and we had to go interview him. There's some domestic issues going on there, so we had to make sure that he was not involved in this homicide.
I was positive that it wasn't her boyfriend. I didn't think he looked anything like him. And I met him, and he was always very nice to me. And I don't think that he would do something like that.
We interviewed Jennifer Stoll's boyfriend, but he was ruled out based on the information he gave us as to where he was, what he was doing. We knew that he was not the perpetrator.
When he called me, he said I had to get a lawyer. Everybody thought it was me. I said, yes, I thought it was you. And he said to me, how could you have thought it was me? I loved her. I said, you guys were fighting. She had a broken finger, and they said a black man with long dreads left the scene. I said, who was I to think? He said, how could you think I would hurt her? I apologized to him.
After I was released from the hospital, the detectives had told me that Rosamond's going to be in there a lot longer. That, the bullet lodged in her jaw. We didn't know each other. We just were both the victims of an awful circumstance. Her more so than me. I mean, she lost her, her they have. So, I can't even imagine.
As the prosecutor, I have to extract as much information as I can, as quickly as I can, but also be mindful of the fact that this is traumatic to talk in detail about something that they just want to forget. I remember speaking to Rosamond 2 days later. Rosamond was describing how the sound of the gunshots were coming closer and closer to her, and she was next in line. She heard the shot that killed her fiance, Charles Halliwell.
I can't imagine laying there, hearing the shots go off, and knowing that you're next.
If it was the last thing that she was going to do, she was going to turn around and see the person who killed her. And she moved and turned her head at the very last moment before she was shot, and that might very well have saved her life. Rosamond said that the initial buzzer ring was answered by Stephen King, and she heard Stephen King say, "It's Sean," to Jennifer, and Jennifer said, "Okay, let him out." And so it was at that point that we had initially the name Sean. We didn't have a last name, but we had at least a first name for one of the two people.
The two main leads we had were the fact that there was a name of Sean and the fact that there was the video. Those are the two main things we had to go on. I know that there's a number of prints that are removed, but we don't know the value or whether it's going to lead us to anything or, whether it was the police commissioners.
They interviewed several people that purchased weed from her that were friends with her. They were trying to run down whatever leads they could and try and make connections because it could be somebody that knows him and knows the person that's Sean.
When I saw the video footage, I didn't recognize Sean. I really didn't know who it could have been.
When we were searching the apartment and the crime scene, after the initial forensic collection is made, then you go back in looking for leads, things that aren't forensically connected, pieces of paper, photographs, this kind of thing. And we found a resume which gave us the first steps to a Sean.
Apparently, he was a roadie for George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic.
Jen always tried to connect people to create things. And that was really a big part of what she did.
They went to the address that Sean Sally had listed on his resume, and he wasn't living there. He had left that place.
We were concentrating on Sean, and we ended up with numerous addresses in New Jersey.
Detectives had contacted every single person just about in his life that he knew. One of those individuals viewed the videotape from the Carnegie Deli and recognized Sean Sally. Significantly, they knew that
Second person who we were trying to identify, they knew his nickname was Dre.
So they started to run him down.
We're going to different homes, interviewing people, and we go to, and I recall it as his girlfriend's home.
She knew someone named Dre, her boyfriend slash common law husband, Andre.
Andre wasn't there. I was the only one on my business cards. I think that's why my card gets left. Sunday morning, 20th, we get a phone call at the office. It's Andre, and he's willing to talk to us.
Andre Smith showed up, ironically, in a red car that fit the description of the car that a witness saw driving away in close proximity to where the murders occurred.
When Andre Smith came in, we asked him if he can give us a set of prints, which he agreed to, and he took his prints.
I can only assume that he thought he was going to be smart enough to keep us at bay and never get trapped into anything but told to show cooperation. I'm assuming that was his goal.
The first two people who spoke to him had been in the room for a long time, and they were like senior detectives. They were senior to us. They continued speaking to him for hours, and then when they were getting anywhere, then the next team comes in. Fresh people who slept all night.
It's kind of like this endless supply of pinch hitters until you find the pinch hitter that makes the connection, and then you run with it.
Billy and Tony Bedell go in there, and they start trying to talk to him.
He denied being in Manhattan, denied being at the scene, denied not having any knowledge of who Sean Sally was. I showed him still photos of the video surveillance tape. And Andre Smith's face is right there, like for him to see. And no, he denied it. It was like, he was like, what was that song, that Shaggy song? It wasn't me.
He does a very good job at denying it, but keep on talking. And, there's always, the detectives always joke about the levels of denial. I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't there. Well, I know what you're talking about. I wasn't there. Well, I know what you're talking about. I was there, but I didn't do it. To eventually, I know what you're talking about. I was there, and I did it. So we're walking him through those levels of denial. There comes a point in time where we are able to match his prints while he's in there to the duct tape. And that becomes extremely important because up to that point, we're pretty sure he's in there. We feel very strongly he's involved, but you don't have physical evidence that puts him on the scene at the time. It's a tremendous confidence builder for the interrogators that they're in the right place. And now they can probably push a little harder because they know he was there as opposed to pushing him to a place that they don't know the answer to.
We had been in there several hours. We approached it from different angles because he was not moving. And this guy was tough enough. We know 6 detectives spoke to him and basically told him, we have you red-handed, and he still fucking denied it. Tom Bedell and I talking and, trying to figure out another strategy. And Irma came into the room and she said, would you guys mind if I just went in there and talked to him just now while he's eating? And I was like, no, Irma, fresh face. That's my thinking, like anything, just to, change up what's been going on.
Let a female go in there, see if they can soften him up. I don't know Andre Smith. I don't know who the person is that I'm interviewing. So I sit down in front of them, and then I can more or less read them. I can read what they like, what triggers them. I go, you remind me so much of my brother Ruben, because he did. He reminded me of my brother Ruben a little bit. I'll talk to perpetrators more on a personal level and then go into an interrogation. And it works for me because I kind of make them feel comfortable with me. But I've had prisoners who said, that Rivera smiled in my face and stabbed me in the back.
Irma has this ability to read the suspect and figure out where it is that she has to make her connection so that she can continue and get the answers that she needs.
I don't care if you're wearing a $5,000 suit or if you're homeless wearing like a pair of sweatpants and dirty sneakers. It doesn't make a difference to me. I treat everybody with respect. Everybody who's bad, there's still something good in them no matter what. You got to find that good spot in them when you interview them. How did you grow up? Oh, yeah, I grew up the same way. I had nothing growing up. I didn't have toys when I was a kid. I didn't have Christmas sometimes. We didn't have food sometimes. I grew up in housing projects, so I can relate to them. Andre Smith was very polite. He was kind of like soft spoken. He said he has a baby. Oh, you have a baby? I know that's going to bring something soft in him. I use that.
All of a sudden, I just noticed these inflections. He picked his head up. He was engaged. He was listening to her. You can see like his eyes like kind of brightened up a little bit. She hit something like a nerve.
Then he told me that he did it because he needed to get diapers for his kid. That's when I thought that he was ready. I said to him, they're going to come back in. They're great guys. They're my friends, whatever. You can talk to them. You can trust them.
Irma gave us the signal. I had to turn around and interrupted Tommy Adello because he was eating the fucking Susie Q and drinking a Yoo-Hoo, which was, dinner of choice usually. I was like, hey, shithead, let's go. Put that Susie Q. Let's get back to there. This guy's changing up here. Let's go in there and take a hit.
This is an interrogation by a team at its best. Irma gets this real personal connection where he's ready to go. It's that tipping point where they're done with the denial and they're ready to vomit information.
He's nodding his head when I'm asking him questions. We were able to get Andre to speak, and he said he met Sean Sally in Newark through a mutual friend, and Sean Sally was saying how he was like kind of down on his luck and that money, and thought about this plan to rob a weed spot in Manhattan. And then finally, Andre Smith gave an account anyway, the murders. He intended to go in there, rob the weed, rob the money. And he said, I even told the girl, but she said, please don't hurt me, don't hurt my friends. And he said, I told her that's not what I'm here for. She was bagging up the money and the weed for him, and he looked out, and Sally was struggling to get everybody taped up. So he went out and he said, here, you stay with her. Started to tape everybody, and then he said, this guy just started shooting everybody.
Once we were into the written statement for the confession of Andre Smith, I get wind that the police commissioner took exception to me correcting his photographer. He also took exception to me showing up in shorts and a t-shirt. Within a day or two, I'm removed from the case by the police commissioner. I'm transferred to the 2-5 precinct in Harlem and took detective squad there. Irma goes to take his name and put it on a piece of paper and put that piece of paper in your shoe and step on him every day for 10 days. It's all going to work out.
This is my father's mother. She was into Santeria. She believed so much in that, But she taught me was when anybody does anything wrong to you, she used to tell me, take a piece of paper, you put their name in it, and I know you're all going to be doing this from now on. You take their name in it, you put their name in your shoe, and you walk on them. And you walk on them, and you tell them you want that person out of your path.
So it is hard to walk away because you kind of own it, but I can't be giving my thoughts and directions to detectives and undermining the new boss because now somebody else is responsible. If they call up and ask for your advice, that's great, but you don't go calling them
offering advice, right? And it's difficult for them too now because they know the police commissioner's manager. So they're not really interested in talking to you because they don't want your stink on them. So I forced myself to completely remove myself from the case. I don't even think I followed it too much in the media afterwards.
They killed 3 people, shot 2, execution style, for $2,800. The New York City Police Department has in custody at this time Mr. Andre Smith, the second suspect responsible for these heinous crimes, who detectives have identified as Sean Sally. Make no mistake that the New York City Police Department will be relentless until he is in our custody alongside his accomplice. My suggestions is that he follow Andre Smith's lead and turn himself in at the nearest police station.
Andre Smith said that he left the apartment with Sean Sally. They went back to Newark, and that was the last time he saw Sean Sally.
We have to continue looking for Sean Sally. We got to get a phone number, find out who he's calling, and then track the phone. So what we were doing is we were tracking the cell sites. He had stopped in Louisiana. We had a team of people, detectives and sergeant down in New Orleans. Sally, he just seemed to be one step ahead. At that point, we would just keep continuing, trying to see if he get phone information, but he got rid of his phone. We had sort of run out of investigative leads. We're still pursuing it, but now it's like 2 months. The case goes cold. We applied to have the case put on America's Most Wanted. On July 14th, America's Most Wanted aired the Sean Sally Carnegie Deli homicide case in an effort to get some leads. It's a national show, so it covers a tremendous amount of ground, and you've alerted the American public.
God bless America. That's what I want to say, because 20 minutes after that aired, people started calling in.
Someone in Florida recognized him and notified us.
And he was thought to be at a homeless shelter in Miami. Miami gets contacted and right away, and they're like, hey, you need to go get this guy. The detective from Miami was interviewing people at that homeless shelter. John Sally walked into the lobby and he bolted. The dogs tracked him down and cornered him in someone's backyard.
He was captured by a City of Miami canine officer. He did suffer a dog bite to the left forearm, but he was treated on the scene. And at this point, we do have him in custody. He's facing 3 charges of first-degree murder and 1 charge of resisting arrest without violence.
When they caught him, I was just like, every freak that I heard, I couldn't sleep through the night. I just thought that somebody was coming in. Once both of them were caught, it was relief.
The chief of Detective Bureau Manhattan at that time told me to go to Florida and do the interrogation on Sean Sally. I really feel that sometimes when people are on the run, it's kind of like a relief to get caught. He seemed that way. He seemed like he was a little bit relieved that he was caught, at that point. So then I interviewed him and asked him what happened, and he kind of just gave it up. They had gotten oral and written statements from him where he admitted killing Jennifer, although he said the gun went off and it was an accident. And he put the rest of the blame on Andre Smith for the people in the living room. The fact that he admitted pulling the trigger, accidentally or not, to killing Jennifer Stahl was significant. And it was significant because it doesn't matter in a prosecution for felony murder whether you intentionally or accidentally kill someone. In fact, it doesn't even matter whether the person died because you shot them or someone else shot them. If you participate in the underlying robbery, you are responsible under the law for the murders just as much as the person who pulled the trigger.
Philip King sat in the second row of the courtroom for his first face-to-face encounter with Sean Scally, one of the men who stands accused of murdering King's son Stephen.
I just kept telling myself, restrain yourself, don't jump over the rail, and go for it.
I could see it, like I could see what that man went through. I hope that's the relationship I have with my son. I'm getting a little choked up here. Pretty sure I do, and that's the relationship I have with my father.
We're busy preparing and trying to get ready for court. It's a year or two later for you, but for that mother or that father or brother or sister, it's like it just happened yesterday.
It's a Tuesday. I'm with my children, dropping them off at school, and I hear that a plane crashed into the World Trade Center. I'm in jeans and a t-shirt. Because of my trouble that I ran into at the Carnegie Deli, I went home and put a suit on. I'm assuming that held me up maybe 20 minutes. I actually hear the second plane hit while I'm in my apartment.
It was true, like, when they say terror, it was like terror. Like, everybody was fucking, like, beyond anxious and frightened, and everybody that you saw.
It's unbelievable what took place there. When it all collapsed. You'll never forget those things. And I lost some very good friends. I mean, it's a hard thing to talk about.
I survived September 11th. Perhaps that 20-minute change would have put me in a different location that would have came up with different results. And I kind of always accredited that lesson with having to put the suit on and not responding in street attire to saving my life.
People that died that day, like God rest their memory, but they continued to kill people for many years after. And 20 years later, I'm diagnosed with a 9/11 related cancer. The terrorists that got more bang for their buck, so to speak.
I was so wrapped up in 9/11. My office was turned upside down. That changed my life so radically, changed my work life, my personal life. It changed everything.
We were all involved. We were all on the same day. We were all there, and we all felt like it was necessary to pick each other up and have each other's back. And we continued to do that. And then we just got back into work, and we did what we do well. And we continued that.
The trial was almost a year to the date of the murders. It was a very unique court case. I had never seen anything like that before. They were both on trial at the same time. They actually had two juries and the two defendants in the courtroom.
The saving grace of doing it this way was to avoid the surviving victims having to come back and relive this twice in the two separate trials. It's traumatic enough once.
I don't like to be the center of attention, and here I am in a box, telling my story. I think I focused on my friend James who was sitting there. It went with me. That kept me a little bit more grounded, I think.
Trial was a few weeks long. There were a lot of witnesses.
I wanted to understand what happened to Jen, what happened to her friends who she loved so much. Seeing those crime scene photos was way too much. The one perpetrator said, when I was with Jennifer, I was guarding her with a gun and my hands were shaking and I was so afraid and I just wanted to get out of there and it accidentally went off. No, it did not. And the reason we know that is because Jennifer's head wound The bullet wound was a close contact wound. So don't tell me you were wiggling and shaking and it accidentally went off. No, you held it purposely with full intent and you shot it. The evidence doesn't lie. People do. A lot.
We heard the verdict for the Carnegie Deli. It was like a relief and a sense of pride. Obviously, I was so happy because all the effort and on behalf of the people that passed away and Rosemont and Anthony that are still living and their families, everybody's families, they finally now they had something, a little bit of closure.
Their sleep was much easier to just say, you'll never see the light of day again.
Were people jumping up and down and celebrating? No, it was sort of a very quiet moment where I think people just hugging and crying and just like, okay, I mean, justice has been served.
The passing of Jem, so many of us were affected, but we didn't know each other. And then we just eventually all connected. Every year after that tragedy, we celebrated Jen's life on her birthday. Jen did. She was such a good soul. She really was.
Was the one that called me and told me about the conviction, and I was very pleased to find out that there was conviction. But it's not like winning the World Series or something like that. You're not elated because someone had to die for this to happen. It's a very strange. I don't know how to explain the feeling.
When I first became a cop, I started getting panic attacks. And the first time that I ever experienced one, I had 2 dead bodies in one day, and I had never been really exposed to death. Eventually, I learned how to shut my feelings on and off. I can actually visualize like a switch in my head, like a light switch, and I can go click, on, off, and I can shut it on and off. It's not that I don't care, it's just that you have no control what's going to happen. So you learn to live a day at a time. That's how I live, day at a time.
These murders were just senseless. It brought me back to that first case where I really understood just how evil people could be. That was the Michael McMorrow case in 1997. It was so brutal, so over the top. One of the most disturbing crime scenes I ever saw. And I've seen thousands.